First of all, a very warm welcome to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me over. Thank you.
Hello and welcome. This is 34th episode of TLP Author Interview Series, and today we have author Sudarshan Ray, who is an storyteller and software developer, entrepreneur, and a avid traveler. So, thank you so much, sir, for joining us. And
Th-
before we start this conversation, let me be clear. I am not someone who's deeply into mythology or a mythology reader,
No problem.
but I I I do know a few key incidents or the general plot line.
Yeah.
So yeah, uh, it is very exciting for me to step into this conversation with curiosity and eagerness.
Hi all my readers. So I'm Sudarshan. As Monica introduced me, I used to be a software engineer in my career. So I lived pretty much most of my life in the United States. Before I came back to India some 6 years back and started to manage my own business. Um, So I live in Kolkata, partly in Kolkata and partly in Bangalore, and I keep traveling.
Yeah.
And I love to write. So writing is my passion. And Mahabharat, the Great Indian Epic, happens to be my first published book. It got published in 2023. And presently I am writing, I'm also doing a retelling of the Ramayana. And after I'm done with Ramayana, I will want to focus on the Indian freedom struggle.
The Mahabharata is a monumental epic. So, what
Yeah.
inspired you to retell it in a simplified and engaging manner for modern audience? So, what was your inspiration behind this?
The inspiration was my dear friend Jen. So we used to work together in our last software company. I used to work here in Bangalore,
Yeah.
and Jen is, of course, a very skilled mountaineer and an expert product manager, and she also has a vast knowledge of Indian history. So we used to discuss during our lunch breaks about every topic, and Mahabharat was our favorite topic. And we used to speak about the many aspects of Mahabharat, especially the friendship shared between Duryodhana and Karna. And so one day she told me, "Why don't you write this all down and we will all read, you know, the story of Mahabharat for the modern reader." So that's
Yeah.
when I started putting down. So initially I was writing, and she was my sole reader. She was my sole critic. But I still poured all my heart into it. And later, after I finished writing, it took me 4 years to write. So after I finished writing, I started looking for a publisher. Fingerprints or Prakash Books picked me up. It took me a while to get a publisher, and then I got published. So that was basically my story. So my friendship with Jen ultimately turned into a book, otherwise known as Mahabharat, Great the Great Indian Epic.
So, it was your friend who inspired you
That's
to go ahead
correct.
and
That's
write.
correct. She is the inspiration. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, the book includes flowcharts and
That's
footnotes.
correct.
Can you tell us how these elements enhance the reader's experiences?
Because it's a complicated family line, right? Mahabharat is of so I wanted to make it as simple as possible for the
Yeah,
readers. I was not assuming that anyone who is going to read the book
yeah,
knows the story of Mahabharat, and I wanted to make it simple for them. So there are the Kurus, the Pandavas, the Panchals, and so many families entangled
mm,
through marriage or otherwise, and therefore, so some of my friends. So while it was in the manuscript form, I used to share it with other friends to get a feedback, and they used to tell me sometimes the family lines are getting too complicated. So that's
yeah,
why I started to give a family line, and then I also understood that this book might be read in within India, where people know the context, and even outside India, which
yeah,
is happening right now, right? By people in, especially in the United States,
yeah,
and they have no context of our caste system. They have no context about Indra, Varun, our different gods, and therefore I decided to add this footnote so they would know who is Indra, who is Varun, who is a Brahmin, who is a Kshatriya, this and that. So again, I wanted to make the reading as lucid as possible, as straightforward as possible for my reader, and that's why I included those charts to simplify the family trees and to give the context the for to give and then to explain each and every concept, such as what was our caste system, who were the Indian gods, who was Brahma, Vishnu, etc., in my footnotes,
Yeah, so
and also a explanation of the Sanskrit words. Yeah.
it's creating a curiosity among the outside country people.
Yes, that's correct. So that they will
Yeah,
know the Indian culture. See, Mahabharata and Ramayana are excellent way of finding out about India.
yeah,
I have traveled the entire globe and I have read world literature, but nowhere have I seen something as magnificent and as complex and as magnificent as the Mahabharata. So yeah, I want the entire world to read. Again, no one has the patience to read volumes after volumes. The Mahabharata is a huge story. If one has to read
exactly.
it in original,
Yeah,
like the 10, 12 volumes, prolific, in other words. So, who has the time? I mean, people do have the time. There are scholars who will read the book in original and have great respect for them. But for the general public, it has to be a little bit simplified. I reckon.
so do you believe Indian mythology and epics can serve as a form of soft power globally, just like Greek and Norse mythology does in the West?
That is correct. I sometimes see my daughter reading a lot of Greek mythology and stories derived from Greek
Yeah,
mythology. And there, of course, I have the deepest respect for all forms of
yeah,
literature. But I don't know much about Greek mythology, though. But in any case, I do have a lot of respect about world literature. But
yeah,
So Mahabharat as a book, right, as a mythology, as a legend, as an epic, as a work of literature, whatever you want to call it. Can be very useful, especially in the modern context.
yeah,
Because we live in a world where Israel is fighting with Palestine, Ukraine is fighting with
yeah,
Russia. So it's a
yeah.
belligerent world, right? And there is much to learn from Mahabharata, and Mahabharata has much to teach. Um, which can bring about world peace. Yeah, so I think our mythology is very powerful, and it does have many powerful lessons.
Okay, great. That is actually true. Whatever you said, that it is very powerful and it can like used as a soft power globally.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's correct. So there are mentions that some part of the narration felt rushed. Was
yeah,
this a conscious choice to maintain the pace or a challenging uh, thing in balancing detail and brevity?
yeah. I heard that. I saw the feedback, and I'm mindful of that while while reading Ramayana.
Yeah,
Some people say that sometimes it almost was. I had the feeling that I was reading a thriller, not a classic.
yeah,
Um, So again, I had the young audiences in mind. For example, Gita, Bhagavad Gita. I did not linger on the subject for too much because I fear that I may lose the patience of my audience. Because again, 18-year-old, 19-year-old may not want to may not want to deliberate on some deep concepts for a very long period of time.
correct.
Of course, some might, but
Yeah,
I was just making that assumption. So therefore, it was my intention to produce a base that will keep my audience riveted.
yeah,
And there are certain things on which I've like, for example, the war councils. There is a chapter called war councils, right? There's one book, what is in Mahabharata known as the Udyog Parva, right? Just before the war
yeah,
began, the war preparations. And I stayed on the topic for a very long time.
mhm,
I mean, our entire volume and entire, I think, at least 100 pages are dedicated to that, to make people understand how war strategies were made, how war preparations were made,
yeah,
what was going through each warrior's mind. There, I did not rush it, right?
yeah,
But when it was going into subplots, like Mahabharata has many convoluted subplots, I generally chose to avoid them, like not go too much into those subplots because they again can make it a bit more complex, a bit difficult to understand. When it came to topics like Gita, I just touched upon them.
yeah,
I did not altogether avoid it. I let people understand what Arjun felt before the war. the kind of despair he felt that he has to kill his own people for a piece of land, and how Krishna responded. But I left it at that. The many yogas of the many parts of like Karma Yoga, Shankar Yoga, the Gita is a massive thing. It's a book in its own right? I would
Yeah.
rather that the readers will read it. Once they have a taste of the epic, if they want to explore further, they can go into topics such as Gita and read it for themselves. So I will just try to capture their fascination, their interest, and will make them riveted to Indian mythology and Indian history. So that was the scope of my work.
Great. So it is a good read for seasoned readers, right? It will be more what could I say, more approaching for seasoned readers instead of
I have.
mythological read.
Actually, I have. I don't know whether he is watching today. I got a mail from a. Lives somewhere in
Yeah.
Bangalore. He said that I was not too much into reading, but I picked your book up and I started to. This is the greatest compliment that an author can get when the reader says that your book introduced me into books and books as such and into reading. So readers, of course, will find it easy.
Yeah.
But even for someone who has probably never picked up a book, this might not be a bad idea because I kept the language very lucid and fast flowing. And therefore, a new reader,
Yeah.
maybe let's say 15 or 16 years old, might also find this book very useful and very entertaining.
Okay. That's a very good compliment that
Yeah.
you got. It must have
Yeah.
captivated you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Your book,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
your book mentions that the book is primarily written for teenagers and young adults. So why do you
16
believe this?
plus.
Yeah, why do you believe this age group should be introduced to the Mahabharata early in
Because
life?
they are starting their life, right? They
Yeah,
are trying to make many important life decisions in personal and professional front.
yeah,
So Mahabharata poses that dilemma, the quandary, which they're going to deal with for the rest of their lives. I
yeah,
mean, and they will understand readily from Mahabharata that there is not always a right or wrong answer. Much of life is in that gray area, and they still have to take a call,
yeah,
right? And there is neither a hero or a villain in Mahabharata, according to me. People say that Yudhishthir was the hero, Krishna was the hero, Duryodhana and Karna Duryodhana and Karna were the villains. Not necessarily so. Everyone has a point of view.
yeah.
So anyone starting life, right? So let's say a 17-year-old will soon go into college, a 22-year-old will soon start working. This is a very good starting point, a very good point of reference to understand life. Mahabharata. That's why I've divided into chapters and sub chapters. And if you pick any one of them, any one of the sub chapters, you will see it has a lesson to. It has a lesson to teach. And just give you one example to illustrate, which I myself experienced during a software life, my life as a software professional. So
Yeah,
we sometimes used to work overtime during the weekends, right? Saturday, Sundays, no holidays, tirelessly working, right?
yeah,
So there is one time when Arjun says that I'm going to kill Jayadratha before the sun sets tomorrow. Yeah,
yeah,
Arjun makes a vow because his son had been killed. Abhimanyu had been killed. So Arjun vows that I will kill Jayadratha tomorrow before sunset.
yeah,
So Arjuna and Krishna starts chasing Jayadratha, and Drona had formed a formidable formation. He has built a formidable formation, and it's practically impregnable. And yet, against all those odds, Arjuna's horses are running towards Jayadratha. At one point, Krishna pauses the chase. Arjun is kind of surprised that why did you pause the chase? The
yeah.
sun is about to set and Jadras is still far away. So Krishna says, wait, your horses are tired, and tired horses won't take you to victory. You need to give them rest. So the same thing I will tell this ambitious software. Some of my readers will one day become managers and executives in software companies or in other companies as well.
Yeah.
Uh, so you need to pause sometimes. You need to pause the chase, regroup, because tired minds will not take you to victory. It will just in the software palace. It just kept adding to our bug count. It was not doing any productive work. So
So
please,
true.
this is one small example. In the same fight, In the same chase, Arjun is confronted by Drone, and there is a duel between the two. So at point of time, Krishna intervenes and says the path अगर इस दंड युद्ध में उलझ रहोगे तो यहीं पर सूर्यास्त हो जाएगा. The sun will set. Your aim today, your target is today Jayadratha, and
Yeah.
you're fighting this duel with, you're wasting your time on Drona. Go past him. So this is again one thing we should know. We should learn that we always take up this unnecessary challenges in life just to satiate our ego. It has nothing to do with our own goal. We are just wasting our time, but just
Yeah.
because of our ego, we take this unnecessary challenges. So these are some of the things that these young people should learn from the Mahabharata. Don't waste time on drone. If Jatati is your goal, don't waste time here, because if you do, the sun will set here before you reach your goal.
Yeah. Focus on the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The line you said that not everyone is villain and not everyone is hero. Like everyone is hero in their own life and villain in someone else's life. So that is very well said.
Yeah. Especially now, I have a little weakness for Duryodhan.
Yeah.
So see what happens when Karna. So remember how Karna enters the arena. So Shastra Pariksha ho raha hai. So there is Drone has arranged for this Shastra Pariksha,
Yeah.
and everyone is showing their skill. And Arjun and Drona is about to announce that Arjun is the greatest Kshatriya of all time. That time, Karna makes his entry. And soon it becomes evident that Karna is also a very skilled warrior, a skilled
Yeah.
Kshatriya, maybe even greater than Arjun. And then what does the Pandavas do? What does Bhishma do? Kripa do? Start taunting Karna. Oh, you're a Sutaputra. You are the son of a charioteer. You have no right to participate here in this competition, in this contest. That's when Duryodhan steps forward. Even Karna's mother Kunti was present there, right? And she was silent. No one said, no, none of these people said a word. Well, they didn't say a word in his defense. They were just taunting him.
Yeah.
That's the time when Duryodhan steps in and says, "This man has merit. This man has merit, and he should. The right to perform here is not hereditary. It's an earned credit. It's an earned honor." And it's an earned credit, and Karna has earned that credit. He should be allowed to perform. So Duryodhan is demonstrating meritocracy here. He said, I have a vacancy in my camp, and I will give it to the most meritorious, otherwise known as Karna. So that's where he champions the other. So the other people are championing the caste system. Okay, you are from a low caste, you cannot participate. Duryodhan sees beyond that. But of course, with Duryodhan, with every tragic character, is every tragic hero, there is a tragic flaw.
Yeah.
And what was his tragic flaw? It's simple: the way he humiliated Draupadi, which he shouldn't ever have done. Karna and Duryodhan should never have humiliated Draupadi the way he did. But otherwise, I am kind of fond of Duryodhan.
That incident is what caused the Mahabharata, right? The Kurukshetra war.
Which one? The
The
humiliation of
Draupadi,
Draupadi?
humiliation of Draupadi.
They would have fought in any case. Yes, that
Yeah.
kind of. See, the thing is, you have to take it in its perspective. Once again, yes, Duryodhan shouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have tried to take in revenge against the Pandavas by humiliating Draupadi. But just take a step backwards. What led to that game of dice? The Pandavas had just performed the Ratsya Yagya, right?
Yeah.
And mind you, Krishna and Arjun had just burned down the Khanda forest. The entire Khanda forest was burned down to hunt out Mayadanav. So
Yeah.
this was the story, right? So the Pandavas had settled in Khanda Prastha or Indraprastha, and they were trying to establish their kingdom. So they set fire to a pristine forest, otherwise known as the Khanda forest, and thousands of innocent animals, native dwellers, die in that forest. I have described that actually because we live in the era of climate change. So every audience should read how cruel that act was, torching a transforming a pristine forest into ashes. That's number one. Number two, then the Ratsya expedition, right? They were collecting taxes from all across Bharatvarsh, right? Then they invite the Kauravas. They display their wealth. They display their wealth in front of other Kshatriyas, ignite their jealousy, humiliate Duryodhan. So that was the context of that game of dice. So it was not as if the Pandavas were submissive. They were also very aggressive people. They
Yeah.
were trying to establish their kingdom. They were burning down forests. They were killing innocent animals and innocent people. Uh, they were going across kingdoms in Bharatvarsha, trying to win their allegiance. And then, of course, Duryodhan will respond. And Duryodhan responded through the game of dice.
Yeah.
He responded by trying to humiliate Draupadi, which he shouldn't have done. And all of these factors led to the war of Kurukshetra.
Okay. So it's not alone the incident, it all other factors too.
Every factor, yes, every factor. That's why I'm saying it's very hard to say that Duryodhan is the villain and for him the war happened. Or, some even say Krishna was the reason why the war of Krishna wanted the war of Kurukshetra, which is true. But then it wouldn't have happened if Bhim and Duryodhan, these people also, Drupad, another family that really wanted the war. So all of them wanted the war, and that's why the war happened. Yes, of course, Draupadi's humiliation, her Chirharan, that is a very important factor. That, of course, one has to say.
Okay. So I have a personal question from
Yeah.
my side, that Krishna always knew what was going to happen. Like he always knew the end. So why he still let the war happen and let the things with Draupadi and Pandavas and Kauravas keep
There is a
happening?
deep spiritual answer to that that people will give. And there are other answers to that. I don't know which one will you like. The deep spiritual answer, of course, he wanted to establish dharma.
Yeah.
Um, it was his intention to eradicate the Kshatriya clan. And Bhubhar Haran, as they say, because Kshatriyas were becoming dangerous. They were torturing the other people. So that's one way of looking at it. Paritranayo sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam, that he wanted to kill the evil and establish the good in the world.
Yeah.
And that's why all these things happened. The other explanation is that Krishna was a very ambitious politician, right? So if you see, he did not side with Duryodhan. He sided with the underdogs, otherwise known as the Pandavas. He was their
Yeah.
mainstay. He was their principal advisor, because Duryodhan's camp was already crowded with people like Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, etc., etc. But here he knew. So even in Dwarka, the politics was divided. Balaram was favoring Duryodhan, and Krishna was favoring the Pandavas. To stay relevant in India's politics, that time, of course, there was no concept of India. Let's say the politics of Bharatvarsh. Krishna decided to side with the Pandavas. So he goes as Shanti Dut to Hastinapur to establish peace between the Pandavas and Kauravas. But what he ends up doing is provoking Duryodhan. He says, Duryodhan invites him to lunch.
Yeah.
Duryodhan invites him to lunch or to dinner before Krishna makes his peace proposal, but Krishna refuses. He
Yeah.
said, "I'm not going to lunch with dinner, dine with you, because you're not on the side of dharma. You are not my friend, and you are not even my host, and I'm not hungry. So therefore, I will not eat with you." So that instigates Duryodhan further. He provokes Duryodhan. So Gandhari catches this. Gandhari makes up. So after the war ends, Gandhari curses Krishna. He said,
Yeah.
"You, Duryodhan was not the cause. You were the cause of this battle, right? You caused this battle. You could have stopped it. You came to Hastinapur not to stop the war, but to foment it further."
Yeah.
So therefore, Krishna wanted the war. Whether there is a spiritual, again, this I will read. This is where I leave Mahabharata interpretation. Many of my readers think, after reading my version, that Krishna was indeed divine, and he wanted the war to establish dharma. And some think that Krishna was just a sorcerer, a great magician, a great diplomat, a great politician who wanted to further his own political interest by causing this war of Kurukshetra. It's up to your interpretation. How do you
Yeah.
want to look at it? That's the fun of this ethic, right? It is open, and I will not resolve this dilemma for anyone, I will just pose this dilemma. That think, was it his was it dharma, or was it self-interest,
Yeah.
political ambition? Yeah.
It has different point of
It
views.
has. It has. It can be said. I can argue the case in both ways. I can, in fact,
Okay.
just what I mentioned. There were like the Krishak, the farmers' protest going on the borders of Haryana some couple of years back,
Yeah.
and they adopted Krishna's policy. Whenever the government tried to negotiate with them, the government would invite them to lunch to eat with them,
Yeah.
the government of India, right? And they refused. I will not eat with you unless we come to a resolution. Same thing that Krishna did with Duryodhan. Then unless we are on the same page, unless we are in argument agreement,
Yeah.
unless we have a consensus, we won't dine together.
Yeah.
Same strategy, same pressure. The farmers. I don't know whether they did it consciously. That I cannot say, but it was a very similar strategy.
Okay. So we have a question from the audience. What is your thought on having one of many authors who have taken Mahabharata as their inspiration for storytelling, or those who have retold the same epic? Didn't you fear your book might not be unique?
So that's why, yes, I was. It's a very good question, and I was afraid of that. But I read most of those versions,
Yeah.
and they are wonderfully written, no question about that. But in my retelling, there were two things. I was neutral. Uh, I Some say I'm pro Duryodhan, which I don't. Some readers say I'm pro Duryodhan, but which I'm not. I'm not pro Kaurava. I put forward each point of view. So if you see most books, they are telling the story from the perspective of the Pandavas. When they describe Khandav Daha, the burning of the Khandav forest, they portrayed it as an act of heroism. I do not. So therein lies my uniqueness, and I have proof for that. Many readers have come back to me after reading the book, and they have their different favorites. Some say Yudhishthir was my favorite, some say Karna was my favorite, some even told me that Ashwatthama was my favorite, some told me Duryodhan was my favorite. So therefore my book remained neutral and kept it, and just threw the question to the reader, that choose your side if you can, choose your hero if you can. And therein lies the uniqueness of my book, that I am just narrating it, I'm just writing it with some passion. I'm not saying dispassionately, with some passion, but at the end of the day, you are going to make your call. You're going to make your decision. I'm not going to say Vidur was Mahatma or Duryodhan was a Duratma. I'm not going to say that. You have to make up your own mind, and therein lies the uniqueness of my retelling.
It's up to the reader who they connect more with.
Yes, so some have told me, I was very surprised. Some even came and told me, "Oh, I never knew Ashwatthama was such a great character." And now, very honestly speaking, when I was writing it, I had really no focus on Ashwatthama, but it has somehow shown through. That character has become prominent somehow, and people have been able to appreciate that character. So, I had the desired impact, so to say.
That's the thing about retellings. We get so many fresh
Yeah.
point of views and fresh
Mhm.
perspectives. Yeah.
For example, there is another retelling. It's not a retelling.
Yeah.
It's more of I think people must have read it. It's Palace of Venusian by Chitra
Yeah.
Banerjee, I think. Yeah. So again, that tells the story from Draupadi's
Draupadi.
perspective.
Yeah.
From Draupadi's perspective, and how that she might have been attracted to Karna as well.
Yeah.
But I don't agree with that point of view. It's a very well written retailing, but I do not agree with that perspective. And that was the tragedy of Karna's life, right? He was rejected by everyone, by
Everyone.
his mother, by Draupadi, and by everyone. It was only Duryodhan who accepted him. So that's indeed the tragedy. That's indeed at the soul of this epic, Karna's tragedy. Yeah.
Okay. So you already answered the next question. Do you have a favorite character while writing the book? Someone you connected with on deeper level?
All of my characters are favorite
Yeah.
at various points. So I already spoke about Duryodhan, why he is my favorite. I speak of Bhishma also. Bhishma was a great warrior, a very dedicated warrior, a very dedicated soldier, and Pandavas really had no chance against Bhishma, unless they put forward, they took Shikhandi's help. Right, but there is again something very interesting about Bhishma. He decided to. So this is again a quandary people will face. That he decided to give up his throne so that his father could marry Satyavati.
Yeah.
Now, was he within his rights? Right? Yes, he was. He wanted to. He loved his father, and he wanted his father to get his woman. But when you come to think of it, because of that, the war of Kurukshetra happened. If Bhishma had not given up his throne,
Yeah.
so that his father Shantanu might marry, the war wouldn't have happened. Okay, so this is again something that I want people to understand, that it's very important that you listen to your parents, but if it's but be careful of what you grant. So Bhishma is again a character I connect with. The other character I connect with is from the Pandava side, Arjun, a brilliant
Yeah.
student, a brilliant student. So this is what is about him that I admire the most. When he is in Swarg, right, and Indra asks him to learn music and dancing. He's a Arjun is a great warrior.
Yeah.
He's a Kshatriya prince. He knows how to fight with the sword, with the bow, and with the arrow, and yet he 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 became such a he was such a great pupil that he also mastered the art of dancing and singing. Right, he learned music from the Gandharva guru Chitrashen,
Yeah.
and he became such a great dancer, such a great musician that Apsara like Urvashi became attracted to him. So Arjun, this his immense sincerity, his ability to learn, and his desire to learn is again something that might be a good example for youngsters. And then what happened again during that chase, when he was chasing Jayadratha and his horses were resting, and he comes down from the chariot, and the Kauravas surround him from all sides. Right? They think Arjun is no more in his chariot, and now we can kill him. But then
Hmm.
Drone says, "What do you think? You can kill Arjun just because he's not in his chariot?
Yeah.
You don't know him." So
Yeah.
that's the thing about Arjun. So that's another character I deeply connect with.
Arjun
After
was an excellent warrior. So
excellent warrior and a great student,
yeah.
um, and focused. He will just see the eye of the bird, the eye of the fish.
Yes. Yeah.
Laser focused, right? When Drona asked to shoot, everyone said, "I'm seeing the sky, I'm seeing this, I'm
Yeah.
seeing the trees." He said, "I'm only seeing the bird." And then he
Goodbye.
says, "I'm only seeing its eyes." That's his laser focus. That's why he's not the king, because his focus is so laser focused, because his focus is so sharp. His
Yeah.
eyes are so focused. The, Yudhishthir, on the other hand, is the king because he sees the entire thing. People sometimes say that probably Yudhishthir was an idiot, this and that. But Yudhishthir again was a very smart man.
Yes.
So after the game of dice, the Pandavas, especially Bhim and Draupadi, wanted to attack the Kauravas right away. Yudhishthir stopped them. He said, "What do you think? You can beat Drona, Bhishma, Karna. Arjun is not even ready. We need to be prepared. We need to be ready before we can accost the Kaurava army." So he was very patient. And then comes his master stroke. Just before the war begins, he plants Karna in the Kaurava camp. Right? He
Yeah.
it was not Krishna. Actually, people have the wrong idea that it was Krishna. It was not Krishna at all.
Okay.
It was Yudhishthir who plants Shalna in the Kaurava camp and asks him to demotivate Karna during his duel with against Arjun. So that was Yudhishthir. Just before the war begins, he touches Bhishma's feet, Drona's feet, Kripa's feet, and neutralizes them. He says that, okay, you are not my enemy, because he knows these are great warriors, and if they want, they can win the war for Duryodhan. So he goes and neutralizes them. such his these are his strategic capabilities. So he's not putting his kshatriya ego that I will not touch the feet of my enemy. These things, he's a king. He knows in order to win the war, he
Yeah.
also has to be strategic. So again, this character, this part of Yudhishthir, I connect with. So there are aspects, every aspect, like with Krishna, Duryodhan, Karna, Arjun, Yudhishthir, that one can connect with.
Yeah, he was very smart, I guess.
He
Yudhishthir.
he was smart.
Yeah.
He was not a great warrior, but all the
Yeah.
great warriors such as Arjun,
Arjun.
Bhim, Drishtadimna, Kshatraki recognized him as their king, as their leader.
Yeah.
So he brought everyone together. That was one problem in Duryodhan's camp. There wasn't actually that camp was not that united. Bhishma was against Karna, Drone was against Karna. So there was a lot of ego clashes
Yeah.
within Duryodhan's camp, which was not happening in the Pandava camp because there were diplomats, very clever diplomats such as Yudhishthir and Krishna. So
Okay.
again, young people might learn how to keep your team together from Yudhishthir and Krishna.
Yeah. I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
So your book promotion seems very well planned with appearances at the book world fairs, interviews, and various
Yeah.
events. So what was your approach to getting involved in such activities? Was there someone who mentored or advised you on how to build such public appearances?
That was mainly my publisher, Fingerprints. So they're a traditional publisher. I think you must be knowing about them. So they planned it out, the book signing events and the book fair events. I also get help from people like you, like book societies and book clubs, who also
Yeah.
take interest in my book and they publish reviews. Um, so it's a combination. Myself, I'm also very eager to connect with my readers, and I always tell them that please, I love criticism. Like of if you look at my reviews, some of them are very flattering, and I love them, but some of them are very critical,
Yeah.
and I love them equally. So if there is something, so for example, you just mentioned some people think it's
So
rushed.
that.
Some people says that I do not have the. So there's one reader who read my book very carefully, and he didn't mention there is no bhakti bhav in the book. He's very correct. It doesn't come from a position. My book doesn't come from a position of faith. So he got the gist of it. He got my spirit. So yeah. So I'm eager to connect. My publisher helps me. Anywhere where I see there is an opportunity to reach out to my audience, I will do that. So yeah, that's how it goes.
Okay, so you have an impressive academic and professional background in software business and operation. So what drew you towards literature and storytelling?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Um,
What do I?
you have what drew you towards literature and storytelling?
What drew me towards literature and storytelling?
Yeah.
Well, so uh, here I have to be a bit cryptic,
Yeah.
as I have been in my answer. So I stood once on the banks of the river Indus,
Yeah.
and she told me that I have great, civilization built on my bank, the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. I have inspired uh, great works of architecture.
Yeah.
So turn your despair for her into words of immortal creation. Um, so thus spoke the river Indus. And that's what uh, pulled me into creativity. So here I will have to keep the answer a bit cryptic.
That's fine. Okay, so we have one more question from the audience. What is your take on harsh criticism and how you have dealt with it?
Oh, harsh criticism. Just I mentioned, I love being criticized. Um, So if I see someone, some of my readers have told me you're extreme left. After reading my book, they say that this book has been written by a guy who is extreme left wing. I'm not extreme left wing, but the thing is, yes, it is true that I do not come from a position of faith. So if there is something, if I understand my audience, my reader
Yeah.
has read my book and does not agree with me, I completely welcome their point of view. In fact, I look forward to their point of view. I do not care for a 4 or 5 rating in Amazon. You can give me a 2, 3, 1, whatever you feel like. If you have read the book, tell me what you really felt like, and I should be able to learn from there.
So you are completely okay with harsh criticism.
I am actually. I look forward to it because that's what builds an author. I think every author. Well, I am just starting out, but every author, no one could, unless see, even if it's the books of Charles Dickens and Rabindranath, among 100 authors, there will be 90 or 80 who will like the book. There will be 20 who will not like the book at all. So it's a creation. Any work of art, any work of creation is bound to be liked and loved by many, and bound to be disliked by some. So that's within the scope, and one has to take it very positively.
Exactly. Readers reviews what makes the foundation for
Yeah,
author.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay, so your bio mentions that you are an avid traveler and a
yeah.
blogger. So, out of all the places you have visited, which one has been the most memorable for you, and what made the experience stand out to
So
you?
yeah, I have been to many places in Europe, USA. USA, I lived for 11 years.
Yeah.
I've gone through the length and breadth of Europe, length and breadth of US, and length and breadth of Asia, including India. But what touched my heart, if you see, is
Yeah.
Jallianwala Bagh, Amritsar.
Yeah.
So that's where the history of India, the history of Asia turned. So I went there, I believe, in 2017, and so first we went to Golden Temple, and then we went to Amritsar, Jallianwala Bagh, and this the place, right? I could just visualize that 100 years back. So that was nearing the anniversary of that Amritsar massacre. Um, there were so many Indians who were killed by British bullets on this very soil. I could see the claw, it was like surrounded by high walls, and the entrance is very narrow. That's the reason why people could not escape.
Yeah.
And they were surrounded. So I just almost could hear those bullet shots. Um, and then I understood uh, that this is the place where the history of Asia, the history of India changed, turned. Because after that incident, there were Congress and other political parties were still of the belief that the British rule is for everyone's good. That they might be doing a few things wrong, but they're generally for the good of the world. But that was that incident that opened everyone's eyes. So the first picture, the first painting you will find in the Jallianwala Museum will be that of Rabindranath Tagore, who spurned his knighthood in protest. So there you will see how, for the first time, um, the hypocrisy of the British rule, that they are doing good for everyone, uh, was exposed, and it changed the course of our history. So I could feel the pain and the misery of those people, the martyrs who laid down their lives there, the people who protested against it. So sadly, just after Jallianwala Bagh, no one protested. Mohandas Gandhi did not protest. The Congress did not protest. No one protested. There was only one man who protested, Rabindranath. And the other people were saying this is not the time to protest. When will you protest if this was not the time to protest? They're killing our Anam. Those people were the Baisakhi just went, right. It was 15th of April, 14th of April that, and this time also I was in Punjab during Baisakhi. So yes, that had when I saw Jallianwala Bagh. And when I saw the Golden Temple, again, one of the reasons why what drew me to Indian history, Indian mythology, I could for the first time probably realize that we are indeed a magnificent nation. We are indeed. I have been to some of the greatest cities around the world: Paris, Rome, Milan. I've stayed in New York, San Francisco. In spite of that, yes, there are many problems here. You can name many, but still. Uh, so yeah, that had that journey to Amritsar, that journey to the Golden Temple had a profound impact on me.
Okay. So, what are your future projects, or what are you currently working on? Do you plan to
Ramayana.
continue exploring mythological retelling?
Yeah. So first of all, Ramayana will be my next work.
Yeah.
So again, from a neutral perspective, now Ramayana is a much more sensitive topic than Mahabharat. Ramayana is because Ramchandra. I do not know how do you look at Ramchandra, or how do readers look at Ramchandra. Was a great king.
Yeah.
Was again a very loyal son, but was he a good husband? Uh, so and was he fair to Shurpanakha, Ram and Lakshman? Was they were they fair to Sita? Uh, so that's again I will not modify the story at all, just as I did not modify Mahabharat. But Ram in his own right couldn't have beaten Bali, couldn't have beaten Indrajit, couldn't have beaten Ravan unless they got the assistance of Bibhishan.
Yeah.
And after they rescue Sita, what does Ram do? Ram tells Sita, well, I rescued you, and that was only my ego, but now go. Just marry someone. Lakshman, Shugri, Bibhishan, I don't care. Oh, you want to stay with me? Then take the Sita test. Take the enter the fire. So this perspective is very important. So when I will write Ramayana as I'm writing, I don't know whether how the publishers is going to take it and how the modern political environment is going to accept it. But I will also tell Shurpanakha's perspective. Shurpanakha just fell in love with Lakshman. She
Yeah.
probably had lust in her mind. For that, you cut off her nose and her ears. That's violence. That's brutality against a woman who
Yeah.
just all she was doing was proposing her love. And we don't think much about that, right? And then again comes Sita. So okay, you have spent a year with Ravan. That's it. To um, live with me anymore. So this deep-rooted male chauvinism that the authors of Ramayana sometimes support, I'm dead against that. I know that Ram was a great king. He had many followers.
Yeah.
The entire Vanasena followed him. He was loved by his subject. He was loved by his brother. But again, this part also needs to be addressed and explored, and should be told, because many in our households, many of Indian households think of Ram as a role model. Maryada
Okay.
Purushottam, right? That's what we call it.
Yeah. Maryada Purush.
So as you
So
can
you.
see, this is again coming from a contrarian point of view. I come from Bengal, and we have very many literature that takes the contrarian view. We have Michael Madhusudan Dutt, who told the story from Indrajit and Ravan's perspective. We have Sukumar Ray, Satyajit Ray's father,
Yeah.
who again wrote a small piece mocking Ram. Then we have Ravindranath. Then we have Professor Amartya Sen. So all these authors, writers of Bengal, have traditionally been critical of the standard views of Ramayana.
Yeah. So you really made me curious about your next book. So
Yeah.
I'm really hoping to read your next book and this
Thank you.
one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll conclude this interview with the last question. So how has your experience been with TLB, the digital series?
It's been very engaging. You are very passionate, so that's what I wanted to tell. Actually, had you not asked the question, I'm extremely glad that people like you are in the era of Amazon Prime and Netflix taking such keen interest in books. I am a part of many of your channels. I love your authors competition. I think as we speak, we are writing a story. I think you publish that every Friday night, and I hope you will be a little relaxed on the word count, but that's okay. But
Yeah.
it's very engaging, very riveting people. Very courteous, and people are speaking about publication. People are speaking of books. People are speaking of reviews and criticisms. I see the efforts are very honest. I'm really looking forward to working with you more.
Thank you so much, sir. This
Yeah.
is a really good compliment for us. And yes, all the leaders, readers, and viewers, go grab the book from Amazon and Kindle because this book has piqued my interest, and I hope it does for you too. So yeah, that was it. And sir, thank you so much for joining us. It was
Thank
really
you.
interactive
Yeah.
session.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. So yeah, we'll see you next time.
Yeah.
And till
Sure.
then, happy reading, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.